Welcome to Excelsior 32, the online news source for the Excelsior Project from the New York Council of Deliberation.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. So we're here at St. Mark's Vestal Lodge on this beautiful day in October with one of the pillars of the Masonic community of the Southern Tier, Brother Abbey. Gene, thank you very much for sitting down with us.
My pleasure.
I am Mark Loughran, Brother Mark Loughran. This is Brother David Karre. We're going to be having a little chat with you, because having known you for quite a few years, it occurred to me that you have quite an interesting story. So,
Well, I've been around a long time.
You have? About how long would that be?
97 years.
97 years, okay. That's incredible, and you're in better shape than any of us, I think.
I doubt that.
Well, why don't we start out by, I'm going to ask you a little bit about your background, your history. Anytime you want to jump in, please feel free. But Gene, where were you born?
Flint, Michigan.
Okay, and can you tell us a little bit about the environment you were born into? Was it a farm, you said, I think, right?
Well, at the time I was born, my father had been a carpenter and traveled around various places in his employment. And as it happened, the Great Depression crashed about the time I was born, and my dad was working on building gas manufacturing plants. For at that time, it was they manufactured gas for heating and cooking out of coal. Didn't have natural gas at the time, or had that. So anyway, in any event, I was born in Flint, Michigan, where they make Chevrolets and Buicks.
And at some point, did you end up working on a farm?
Yes, my folks bought a farm when I was about 5 years old in Lake Orion, Michigan. If you never heard of Lake Orion, Orion is the assembly place for General Motors parts.
Okay.
General Motors automobiles. So we had a small farm there where I was raised. Small dairy farm, and
You have brothers, sisters?
yes, I had a brother and 4 sisters.
Okay.
I was the third oldest, so as we developed that farm that my parents bought, I got to be the head farm boy.
What did that involve? What did that entail?
Well, I was able to, we had a team of horses that I was able to harness and drive and do farm work with those horses. Later on, we bought a tractor, which I was pleased to have and be able to drive and do farm work with.
Was that the beginning of your tinkering with machinery?
Probably, yes. Had to keep that old farm equipment operating.
And many years later, it translated into your your ability to run the fire engine for the shrine, right?
Yes, well, as a matter of fact, we had a Model T Ford pickup truck on the farm that I was able to operate. So I was already a qualified Model T Ford operator, and got into the Shriner's fire truck, which is a Model T Ford. I was able to deal with that.
That worked out well. At some point, did you end up moving to Kansas?
Well, yes, I had worked at General Motors in Pontiac, Michigan, at the truck and coach division for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, during and after I graduated from college. And an outfit called Link Aviation came to Detroit, recruiting, and I thought that sounded like fascinating work, so I left General Motors and joined Link Aviation.
I think I fast forwarded through a fairly large chunk of your life.
Yeah.
So from Michigan, when you were in Michigan, where did you go to school? Did you go to high school there and then on to college?
Yeah, I was born in Flint, and about the time the Depression hit, my dad was a carpenter and had been working for Consumers Power Company, which produced gas for heating and cooking at that time. They used to make it from coal before they got natural gas going. But I forgot where I was going with that anyway.
Well, when you were 17 years old, what did you end up doing?
Well, the family moved finally to a small farm in a community called Lake Orion, Michigan. And I went to high school there. On my 17th birthday, during World War II, I joined the United States Marine Corps. Fortunately, I didn't get put into the Corps until the middle of May, and that was in my senior high school year. I guess I was probably the teacher's pet, maybe, because they allowed me to graduate without ever taking any final exams that year.
So when you got in May, the war in Europe was winding up, or winding down.
Yes, and the war in the Pacific was still going strong, so.
Where'd you go to boot camp?
I went to Parris Island, South Carolina. Went to boot camp there, and moved into Camp Lejeune and went into basic infantry training there.
So every Marine's an infantryman, right?
Pardon?
Every Marine is an infantryman, right?
Yeah, every Marine's a rifleman first.
Yeah.
But eventually I got put into communications, so I was in communication for the entire time that I was in the Marine Corps.
And did you end up going overseas at some point?
Yes. We were, after boot camp, went to Camp Lejeune, got basic infantry training, and were then scheduled for the invasion of Japan. Went to California, got on a ship, headed for the invasion of Japan, where we were drilled on the environment in Japan. We're advised to kill every man, woman, and child there because they were all armed. As our ship proceeded across the Pacific Ocean, Harry Truman dropped a couple of bombs on the Japanese, and they decided it wasn't that much to be gained by continuing, so they gave up. And
What was the feeling like on board the ship when that happened?
Well, it was obviously celebration. We were very pleased that we were able to avoid having to endure that invasion of Japan, and as we were preparing for that, we were told to kill every man, woman, and child because we told that they were all armed. So it's a great relief not to have to go through that sort of a thing, combat with killing civilians and everything. So it was a good relief to have that over with.
Were you discharged from the Marines after a while?
Well, yeah, I went. We went on, spent a couple of weeks in Japan, and then went to North China. Stayed there for
Technology.
Hi, I'm being interviewed for something, so I'll have to call you back on. Bye-bye. Sorry.
Quite all right.
So where were we? Go to China.
To China. What kind of a unit did you go to China with, and what was your mission?
I was joined the 1st Marine Division. I was in headquarters and service battalion in communications as a telephone lineman. Marines are always first riflemen and secondly take on other tasks, so I, during World War II, in the Marine Corps, if you shot expert, you got $5 a month. Our pay at that time was, I think, $30 a month, so $5 a month was a substantial increase in salary. So I shot straight and often.
Well, what was your mission going to China at that time?
The war was just, World War II was just concluded, but the Chinese still were occupied by the Japs. So we were, 1st Marine Division was detached to China to clear the Japanese out of China. Chiang Kai-shek was president of China at the time, had been made president of China at the time, so we went there and just established the peace of World War II in China.
All right. So was that late 1945 or 1946?
Late 1945, yes.
Now, at that time, the Russians were in the neighborhood too, right?
Yes, yes. The Russians were moving to take over at that time. There was a large Russian population in North China at the time. During the Russian Revolution, a great number of Russians had moved across the border into China. So Tientsin was in northern China, so there was a large Russian population there. There were a pair of Russian-Chinese twin girls in Tientsin at the time, strikingly beautiful women. they avoided getting any relationship with any Marines. For some reason, it was hard to understand.
Did you develop a love of beer while you were over there?
Oh, yes, yes. The Marine Corps had enlisted men's clubs, which were famously known as slop shoots. so we could go to the slop shoot and get a can of beer once in a while.
And was there a particular Chinese brand of beer that you grew to like?
Yes, Tsingtao beer was very popular, and I served in both Tientsin and Tsingtao, and finally in Qinghuangtao, China.
I've heard that it's still sold in America today.
Yes, Tientsin beer is still sold in America today.
Now, was there a story about your detachment sort of missing its ride at one point?
Yes, as the First Division was moved to Guam, and I was in a detachment sent to Qinghuangtao, which was up on the North China Sea. And got up there, and I guess the activity of transferring the First Division to Guam got so involved that they sort of forgot us guys up in Qinghuangtao.
How big was that detachment that you were with?
It was probably less than 100 men.
Okay.
And we decided that they'd forgotten we were up there. I was in communications, got on the radio, raised an Army MP in Tokyo on the radio, told them to get to the 6th Fleet and tell them there was a detachment of Marines in Qinghuangtao, and that keep this channel open and we try to communicate with them. So eventually an LST came steaming up the river and picked us up, so.
A landing ship.
Yes.
Now, at that point, what rank were you?
I was probably either a buck sergeant or staff sergeant.
All right, so you had some supervisory duties.
Yes, yeah, I was platoon leader.
And were the Russians close by at that point?
Yes, yeah. The Russians were in close proximity to us, and we were concerned that they may try to invade Japan or China at that time. But fortunately, we were able to get out before the Russians moved in.
And I'm sure that the Marine Corps brass apologized to you for forgetting about you.
I can't remember exactly how that went, but some gunnery sergeant put his boot in my rear end and said, "Why the heck were you guys up there?"
All right. At some point, were you mustered out after Japan and China?
Yes. I had enlisted with a four-year enlistment, and so was able to get out in late '49. When I got out, got talking to some guys, and they said they were going to go to school under the GI Bill, so I went to school. When I got discharged from the Marines at my first tour, some guy came around and harassed me to try to re-enlist, and I finally, to get rid of him, I agreed to join the inactive reserve. So, didn't have to go to any meetings or do anything, you're just there. When I got discharged, started going to school, studying electrical engineering, and in my sophomore year, that caught up with me, and I got recalled back into the Marines for active duty again during the Korean War.
What were your duties then?
I was in communications. I was a telephone lineman, and so went back in for another couple of years, and as a reserve, Marine reserves. Got released, returned to college. In order to get the curriculum that I needed in college in January, I could only get the curriculum I needed in evening school, so I started attending evening school and working days, going to school evenings and doing homework all weekend.
Tell us about your time with GM and what you did with GM.
After release from the Marines, I eventually got a job at General Motors Truck and Coach Division in Pontiac, Michigan. We were making they were making all kinds of trucks and buses. Most of the buses in the country were made at that plant. Greyhound bus was one of our major clients.
At some point, did you learn that Greyhound buses have a hidden sleeper compartment?
I was working in electrical engineering lab, which was a very interesting job because we did all electrical system development for trucks and buses, as well as doing all instrumentation for road tests and dynamometer tests and proving ground tests and so on and so forth. At one time, I was doing some Greyhound bus work. Well, Greyhound operated the shuttle between Detroit and the Detroit Airport. And so those buses never left town. So if we had any test work that needed to be done on Greyhound buses, we could go and use and do the testing on those Greyhound buses that shuttled to the airport because they always stayed in town. I had a recording oscillograph which used paper film, and I had that recording oscillograph stowed in the baggage compartment of a shuttle bus that went to the airport and back, doing some testing. And this recording oscillograph used photographic paper to record whatever it was that you were testing. And we got into Detroit, and I decided I better make sure I had enough film for the next run. Climbed into the baggage compartment where my recorder was, decided I needed to change the film. So I closed the baggage compartment door to keep the light out, started changing this film, and pretty soon, vroom, vroom, I hear the engine start up. So I had a pleasant ride in the baggage compartment out to the airport. Got out there, and Red Cap opened the baggage compartment. I climbed out, and he says, "Man, you're not allowed to ride in the baggage compartment." Sorry, ask the driver. He was supposed to be watching out for me.
Tell us about your activity and participation in the invention of an important automotive part.
Which one?
The automotive part you helped invent?
Oh. I worked in the electrical engineering laboratory at the truck and coach division, and was one of the things that came up was to put fluorescent lights in buses at the Fifth Avenue Coach Company in New York. Well, that would have involved creating couple hundred volts AC alternating current, and all that, of course, we had on the coaches was 12-volt DC batteries. So we considered ways of creating the AC voltage necessary for operating fluorescent lights. And finally said, well, why don't we start out with AC? And my boss, who was a clever guy, said, well, how would you do that? And I said, well, we would put a alternating current generator on the drive line of the bus. Well, you have to do this test and that test. So we did some tests, and my boss was a smart guy. He looked at the test results that we did using alternating current generators, and said, wow, with the development of rectifiers, solid state rectifiers now, we could use all AC generators on the engines and rectify that to charge the battery. So from there on, in conjunction with the GM electrical division, which I've forgotten their name, developed the alternators for using for charging batteries, using solid state rectifiers to create the DC to charge the batteries and operate the equipment on automobiles and buses. So that was the development of the electric alternators that are used on automobiles and buses to this day.
So because of your total involvement in that, working with GM, a patent was created, and because of that, you became very, very rich because GM paid you handsomely for that, no doubt.
Yes, yeah, the typical payment for creating a patent was the employee got $1. So I was wealthily paid for my work on that project.
And I'm sure you invested that wisely at that time.
Yes, I think I probably spent at least a quarter of it on a can of beer.
Qingdao.
Yeah, Tsingtao beer.
So while you worked for GM, you were interested in another company that came from the Binghamton area, Link Aviation, which Link created the flight simulator, and they came and looked after you for coming to work for them, right?
Yes, while I was working at General Motors and the electrical engineering lab, an outfit called Link Aviation came to Detroit recruiting. And Link was quite well known during World War II as providing training equipment for training pilots. So that sounded like fascinating work. So I went to work with Link Aviation at that time. Moved from Michigan to Binghamton, New York, and found the work to be as interesting as I had anticipated.
And your service, your employment with Link gave you an opportunity to move across the great country to, I believe, Kansas?
Yeah, so when I first started at Link, I was employed as a field service engineer, and my first assignment was Topeka, Kansas, Forbes Air Force Base, maintaining some C-11 instrument trainers, a couple of them, plus the B-47 bomber simulator.
And it was in Kansas that you started your Masonic career.
Yes, I lived out near the base. My next door neighbor was a Air Force dentist. And he was a Mason, and so that got me interested in Masonics, in the Masonic order, so I joined the Masons in Kansas.
That was 1957 or thereabouts?
Yes, yeah.
Do you remember the name of the lodge and where it was? Nice? Was it?
Yeah, Albert Nice Lodge in, can't say the name of that town now, little town,
Was it Tecumseh?
Tecumseh, Kansas, a suburb of Topeka.
What was a Masonic lodge like at that time in Tecumseh?
Oh my, hard to remember. It was a active lodge. There were a great number of Air Force people that were members of the lodge, as well as the local natives, of course. So, it was a friendly, fraternal lodge. I enjoyed being a member there.
At some point, how did you make your way up to the Binghamton area?
Well, I had been recruited by Link Aviation when I was working at General Motors. And, of course, Link Aviation's headquarters was in Binghamton, New York. But of course, they had flight simulators at every Air Force base in the in the country, and at most bases of U.S. allies had Link simulators in their Air Force. So I was assigned to maintain, operate a B-47 simulator in Topeka, Kansas. Moved there, did that for a couple of years, and finally moved back into engineering in Binghamton at Link Aviation.
And how long did you work there?
40-some years. It was, that was fascinating work. We got into building commercial simulators. The FAA made a rule that all commercial pilots needed to be requalified semi-annually. Which would have meant that they would have to take an airplane and go fly in an airplane every 6 months just to get qualified. The obvious best answer to that was to use flight simulators for that purpose, not tie up an airplane doing it. So Link became primary supplier of commercial aircraft simulators. Prior to that, they'd been primarily military trainers, but that instance, of course, made a great deal of good market for commercial simulators. So we made Link made commercial flight simulators very extensively after that time.
All right. And once you came up here, you joined the lodge, right? Eventually.
Yes, yes. Number of people that worked with me at Link belonged to a lodge in
It was Upper Lisle.
Upper Lisle.
Yeah.
Why they were members up in Upper Lisle is a mystery, I guess, but it was a very nice, friendly lodge. A lot of my fellow employees were members there, so I was pleased to be join that Masonic Lodge.
You were there for about 20 years and then it sort of switched over to Main Lodge?
Yes, yeah. The taxes on the lodge building in Upper Lisle got to be too much for us, so Upper Lisle Lodge diminished and joined and affiliated with Main Lodge.
Okay. And you actually served as worshipful master in Maine? Right?
Yes, I was master of that lodge.
How did you enjoy that?
It was good. I was also a member of the New York Ontario Shrine Association and eventually became president of that organization. So my wife and I were able to attend lodge meetings at all the lodges in the New York Ontario Shrine Association.
So you were a Shriner as well?
Yes, I was a Shriner as well.
And you served as potentate of Karre Shriners in 1995.
Yes.
But one of your claim to fame in the shrine is your ability to drive our 1921 fire truck and
Yeah.
keep it running.
Yes, yep, we had that antique Model T Ford fire truck, which I enjoyed very much operating that. Had driven Model T trucks on the farm at home, so I was familiar with the mechanism for operating those vehicles and enjoyed very much driving that fire truck in parades that we were involved in.
You were one of only a handful of people who figured out the gearbox, right?
Yes. Yep.
At some point, you ended up joining your current lodge, right? Johnson City Lodge?
Yes.
About 20 years ago, I think.
Yeah. Several of my acquaintances, as I said, were in the Main Lodge, and but going to Maine was a trip. And knew some people that were in Johnson City Lodge, so I transferred my membership to Johnson City Lodge, which I guess I'm still a member of.
And we probably should mention that it's Maine, New York, not the state of New York.
Yes, Maine, New York. Yeah.
And you're active, very active to this day in Johnson City Lodge.
Yes.
You're also very active in another area that we have in the southern tier, and that's our Masonic Golf League.
Yes, yes. Enjoyed for many years playing golf in the Masonic Golf League. Didn't ever raise to a position of excellence in the golfing part, but always enjoyed the great fellowship of the Masons there. Always good fellowship there. If I lost a golf ball, one of the guys would give me one to play with.
When we first started this interview, I forgot one of our typical greetings, which is I usually ask you how you're doing.
Never better than I can remember.
So you have quite the workout routine. Now, is that because of your years as a Marine or because of being raised on a farm?
Well, probably a little of each. I try to keep active and enjoy going for a hike at Otsiningo Park, particularly in the springtime and summer, because sometimes there are scantily clad young women hiking down there too.
Well, we might have to censor that out, or maybe not.
We'll leave that up to the higher ups.
Yep.
And so I would assume you're in better shape than most 40-year-olds that I know. So you do what, 4 miles a day?
Yes, I used to regularly do 4 miles a day, but I've kind of eased off on that now a little bit. 2 or 3 miles is enough.
Daily?
Yes.
Okay. And so I assume that you're a teetotaler. That was a joke.
I have drank tea, if that's what you mean, yes. Although I have a beer occasionally too,
Checked out. Yeah.
Among other things.
among other things.
Among other things. All right. I have a couple of general questions, for those watching. Back when you joined the military, a very large percentage of Americans had been in the military compared to today. Today it's just a very small percent. So not many people really know what it's like being in the military. Can you generally just tell us about your experience? Did you enjoy it? Did you find it humorous? Did you have a good time, or was it something that you'd rather not repeat?
Oh, well, once a Marine, always a Marine. You can't get over that. During War II, everybody was in the military service. All of my acquaintances, schoolmates, and so on. So I took the opportunity when I got old enough to enlist in the United States Marines. I joined when I was on my 17th birthday. You could join without your parents' permission, which I guess my parents wouldn't have bothered anyhow. So on my 17th birthday, I joined the Marines in January, and didn't get inducted until the middle of May. When I was a senior in high school, and of course, being a teacher's pet was easy for me, so I was able to graduate without ever taking final exams. They let me graduate from high school. My mother had to go and pick up my diploma.
What would your advice be today to somebody considering joining the military?
I don't know that there's any better organization to be involved in if you want to be in the military than the United States Marine Corps, first to fight. And once a Marine, always a Marine. Marines are proud of their organization and their service there.
And let me ask you also about your time in Freemasonry. How has it affected you?
Well, it's been a very beneficial time for me to be in a Freemason. I've always enjoyed the fellowship there. Always found members of the Masonic order to be great people, great men. I served in many positions in the Masonic organization, master of my lodge, went into the Shriners, which is also part of the Masons. The qualification to be a Shriner is you must be a Master Mason. And if people are aware that Shriners operate children's hospitals throughout the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and that was an organization that I found to be very useful. Was pleased to be able to serve in various capacities for the Shriners hospitals.
Aside from being the potentate and being the president of NIOSA, you also served the Shrine by transporting sick children to hospitals, right?
Yes, very great experience. I enjoyed doing that, and made good acquaintances in several of the Shriners hospitals that I went to in Philadelphia, Erie, Pennsylvania, Boston, and Springfield, Massachusetts. always look forward to transporting the children and their families to those hospitals. The kids, if they had casts or something on their legs, and then, of course, as they grew, they had to continue to have these orthopedic processes changed as they grew. So you would get to know specific families and become acquainted with them and their situations. So it was always a pleasure to be able to serve in a capacity like that.
And if there was one thing you could say to a young Mason just starting out about his future Masonic journey, what would it be?
It would be to continue to grow in the Masonic orders, and the Shriners are a great outfit, operate hospitals throughout the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and if you can be involved in working with the hospital and their patients, you'll find it very rewarding.
Well, do you have anything else?
No.
All right, Gene, do you have anything else you'd like to say to the audience?
It's always been my pleasure to be a Mason and a Shriner. They're always upright members. The members are always upright people, and it's always a pleasure to meet with them and serve with them.
Well, thank you very much, and it's been a real pleasure to speak with you, and you've done more than anybody will ever know for the Masons of the Southern Tier and New York Masonry in general. So thank you very much, Gene, for being with us.
Thanks for spending time with XLCR 32. The experiences, comments, opinions, and views shared on this program are those of individual Freemasons and do not reflect the official position of any Grand Lodge, Concordant, or Pendant body. Until we meet again, keep on reaching higher.